Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and totally flip the script on a classic spooky tale. You know the setup, right? Dark, rainy night, terrifying old mansion, and a totally spooked victim who wandered onto the wrong porch. But today, we're unpacking a brilliant piece of short fiction called Midnight Delivery to 1313 Shadow Lane. And here's the twist. We're not looking at it from the terrified human's perspective. No, we are stepping right into the translucent shoes of the misunderstood monster inside. Because seriously, when you stop and look at it from the ghost's point of view, this whole thing goes from a horror story to an absolutely hilarious comedy of errors.
So, what's a 200-year-old ghost to do when eternity gets boring? To really get this story, you have to imagine hanging around the afterlife for 2 whole centuries. I mean, you've haunted the same hallways, you've rattled the exact same chains, and frankly, the novelty has completely worn off. Naturally, you're going to crave something, anything, to break up that endless monotony. You don't want to scare anyone anymore. You literally just want a late-night extra cheese pizza. And honestly, that is the core motivation driving our supernatural host here. Section 1. 200 years of dead boredom, the long wait for pizza.
Now check out this massive disconnect between what the delivery driver, Jake, is seeing and what our ghost is actually experiencing. The text points out that this ghost has been craving pizza for 200 years. Just think about that. That's 2 centuries without a single slice of melted mozzarella. So Jake drives up to this old, creepy mansion. He's seeing broken windows, flickering lights, and a giant gate that just magically squeaks open. He's thinking, nope, absolutely haunted. But let's look at this from the ghost's perspective, right? To the ghost, this is just home. The gate squeaks because, well, it's pretty hard to oil a hinge when your hands pass right through the WD-40. The lights flicker because the wiring is just ancient. To our ghost, this isn't some terrifying horror movie set piece. It's just a cozy hangout spot, and they are desperately waiting for their dinner. Moving on to Section 2. The delivery guy arrives. A knock at the door.
When Jake finally braves those dark, rainy streets and knocks on that spooky front door, it slowly creaks open on its own into total darkness. Then, our messy-haired phantom floats forward and whispers, "Come in." Now, from a horror movie standpoint, this is it. This is the moment you scream. The cold voice, the creepy door, it is pure nightmare fuel for Jake, who is practically dropping the pizza box. But wait, think about the ghost's intentions. They finally hear that glorious, long-awaited knock. They're just floating to the door to welcome their guest out of the freezing rain. They're just trying to be a good, hospitable homeowner. And this right here perfectly highlights the comedic misunderstanding at the heart of the story. I was just trying to be polite. Jake is out there hyperventilating in pure terror. He sees this pale, messy-haired figure floating toward him while thunder crashes in the background. But the ghost? The ghost hasn't looked in a mirror in 200 years. They probably have zero clue they look like a terrifying specter. They're genuinely just trying to be welcoming, basically thinking, oh, thank goodness you're here, get inside out of this storm, all while the human in front of them is having an absolute meltdown. The dramatic irony totally peaks in this brilliant exchange. Jake is screaming for his life, throwing his hands up in the air, offering the pizza for free just to escape. He literally shouts, "Take the pizza for free, I don't need the money." But our ghost? The ghost stops dead in their tracks, blinks, and completely ignores the screaming. Instead, they are joyfully, intensely focused on one single detail. Wait, is that extra cheese? It's just such a masterclass in subverting expectations. The monster absolutely does not care about the victim's soul. The monster only cares about the toppings. Section 3. Not a horror business. Setting the record straight. The ghost confirms the order, and Jake is just utterly bewildered. He manages to ask, "You can eat pizza?" And the main ghost actually lets out a huge sigh here. You can totally feel their exasperation, right? It takes a lot of energy to deal with terrified humans when you're just really hungry. So the ghost clarifies things for a frozen, super confused Jake with this fantastic line. "Relax, man. We're haunting this place, not running a horror business." They're essentially saying, look, yes, we are ghosts. Yes, this is a haunted house, but we're off the clock right now. We aren't here to scare you. We just want to eat our food in peace. It completely humanizes the whole supernatural setup. Bringing us to Section 4. Phantoms, Pizza, and Punchlines, the Haunted Dinner Party. Once the main ghost establishes that this is a safe, completely mundane transaction, the whole scary haunted house facade drops entirely. It instantly turns into a supernatural dinner party. Just look at the sheer absurdity of these totally normal, food-motivated specters popping out of the woodwork. From their perspective, they've just been hanging out in the afterlife waiting for the delivery guy. You've got the main host who ordered the extra cheese, then another ghost strolls in wearing sunglasses. At night, indoors, completely defying all spooky logic. Another one brings in the soda, proving that even ghosts understand beverage bearings. And then, brilliantly, a tiny ghost appears just to ask, "Did you bring garlic bread?" They aren't some terrifying army of darkness. They're literally just a bunch of roommates eager for their late-night takeout. So the scene shifts into this genuinely fun hangout. Pretty soon, Jake is sitting around with 5 ghosts, actually eating the pizza with them and just laughing. And to really cement how normal and unscary these guys are, one of the ghosts decides to drop a terrible dad joke into the conversation, asking the room, "Why did the skeleton skip dinner?" Because he was already full of himself. You can just feel the awkward dead silence that sweeps through the room right after that punchline drops. The source text actually notes that the entire room went completely quiet. It's the exact same cringe reaction you'd get at any normal human party when someone tells a truly awful joke. These ghosts definitely aren't above terrible puns. In fact, seeing as they've been dead for hundreds of years, their comedic material is probably a little bit outdated. This moment really shows how much Jake has transformed over the course of the evening. He goes from being absolutely terrified, literally offering up free food to save his life, to playfully roasting them. He groans and fires back with his perfect comeback. That joke is scarier than this house. Everyone, ghosts included, burst out laughing. The fear is completely gone, totally replaced by this shared sense of community over a warm box of pizza. And that leads us to Section 5, our new favorite driver, a rewarding delivery. This hilarious encounter wraps up by officially establishing Jake as the ghost's absolute favorite delivery guy. Think about it from the ghost's perspective. They finally found a human who didn't run away screaming into the night. He actually stuck around, shared a meal, and even tolerated their awful jokes. So as Jake gets ready to leave, the ghost makes sure to hand him one huge tip. It's such a wonderful detail. I mean, what does a 200-year-old ghost need with earthly money anyway? They've probably been hoarding old cash or gold coins in the walls for centuries. They hand over this massive tip to show their genuine appreciation for Jake braving the spooky mansion, the stormy weather, and his own sheer terror, just to make sure they got their extra cheese. Then, the Phantom solidifies his successful transition from a scary specter to a friendly regular by officially inviting Jake back. He tells him, "Come back next Friday, movie night." It is totally an invitation from one friend to another. Jake smiles and agrees, though he adds one very smart stipulation. "Sure, as long as you order before midnight." The ghosts have finally found their go-to guy, and Jake has found the most lucrative and oddly welcoming stop on his entire route. We're gonna wrap up this explainer by leaving you to ponder this ending thought. Sometimes the scariest places have the funniest customers. 1313 Shadow Lane became Jake's favorite delivery stop. By looking at this tale through the eyes of our hungry, misunderstood ghost, we get to see how the most terrifying facades can sometimes hide the most relatable, pizza-loving people, even if they happen to have been dead for 200 years. It really makes you wonder, right? The next time you see a dark, spooky house on a hill, is it actually filled with unspeakable horrors, or is it just a couple of introverts desperately waiting for their garlic bread? Definitely something to think about next time you order delivery. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what's really hiding behind the spooky front doors in your life.